Hello, beautiful people. It says we are live. So I'm going to log into YouTube and double check, y'all. I'm using a new system powered by StreamYard, but this time I am doing my first YouTube live. And I want to make sure everything is working properly. But if you are tuning in live, if you are catching this on a replay, y'all know what to do. Comment down below, hashtag live, hashtag live, hashtag replay, as I make sure everything here is good to go. And also, as you were tuning on in, put down below in the chat or in the comments, what part of the world are you tuning in from? I want to see how much of the world do we have connected here today. So let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat box. If you're new to my voice, new to my face, I am Alante Collier, founder. Hold on one second. Founder and CEO of Streamline and Scale, where in a nutshell, what I focus on is giving business owners their time back. And I do this in a way where I remove them from the day-to-day operations so they can live their life. So we do this, of course, in so many different ways. I see I am live. Okay, cool. Awesome. So let's dive in, y'all, because listen, we got 30 minutes to be in and out. And I definitely want to give y'all all of this goodness. So let's kick on off. And if you missed last week, y'all, so last week I kicked off this new series that I'm doing called Becoming Famine-Proof, 10 Steps to Survive Any Recession. So every single Thursday for the next 8 weeks, I'm going to be going live Thursdays around 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, giving you a new step that you can take action on so that you can make sure that your business is positioned to survive and become what we call famine-proof, which it's pretty much a business that can withstand any kind of economic and environmental disaster because you can plan for everything else, but baby, you cannot plan for that. And I learned my lesson back in 2020 when the pandemic came around and I had two businesses that were flourishing. I had an Airbnb down in Atlanta. I had a travel business. Y'all, I was living my best life. I had moved to Seattle and then the pandemic came and I'm like, damn, I did everything right. Dotted all my I's, crossed all my T's, but I didn't prepare for the famine. So this is what this whole series is about. And so y'all, if you missed last week, I think you have about 24 hours to catch up on step one. I do not keep these videos hosted for replays for forever. This is one of those series you just got to tune in live, baby. And then I'll keep the replay up for about 7 days or so, just because this is a free training. But I definitely want you to be able to take this information, get this value, and most importantly, take action. Because you just sit here and look at my pretty face and don't do anything with it. And then after this series is done in the next 8 weeks, you're like, okay, my business is like, uh-oh, I'm a little nervous. The recession is around the corner. What's happening? And you didn't show up or you didn't do the things that I'm teaching you to implement to position your business to survive, then, it is what it is. So last week, we covered foundation. Of course, everything starts with the foundation. And last week specifically, I went over how you can build a resilient foundation because it doesn't matter what tactics, what tips I give you in the world of operations. I could give you strategies all day when it comes to streamlining your operations, when it comes to how you market, how you sell, how you get clients, how you keep clients, how you hire, how you manage your team. But before I can get into all of that, you've got to make sure that everything is rooted in good soil. So if your foundation is shaky, if your foundation is rocky, if your foundation is not in a place where you'll be able to build upon all the things that I'm getting ready to teach you, then it doesn't really matter what tactics and what tips I give you because everything starts and ends with you. And so this is your foundation. So last week I went over your mission statement, right? And so your first step was to rewrite your mission statement. Listen, if you are still operating with the same mission from 3 rebrands ago, baby, what you doing? What you doing? at this, and the reason why I say that is because even though you may have this rebrand, you may have revamped your offers, you may have done all the things, if you haven't even taken a look at your mission statement, your vision, your core values, your principles, then that tells me that whatever changes you're making with your business, every decision is going to be out of alignment, right? What I mean by that is every decision as far as who you're going out there to serve, your clients, your partners, who you choose to partner with, right? How you're going out and you're finding people to bring onto your team. All of this is going to be out of alignment if you don't, really focus on your foundation, your core value. So along with your mission statement, y'all, I like to put it this way, because if you don't know, I have a green thumb. So outside of all this business stuff, I love to garden, but I'm going to put it into very simple terms so that you can understand how crucial all this foundation is before I teach you anything about strategy and operations and growing and scaling and all that good stuff. So when you're looking at gardening, right? And side note, disclaimer, y'all, I get excited. I do tend to kind of go off on a tangent a little bit. So y'all, I'm trying to keep this to 30 minutes. So at any point in time, y'all reel me back in if I get off topic a little bit. But y'all, I just love gardening. So I feel like I'm just about to go in. But when it comes to gardening, right? Whether you're, starting your garden from seeds or you're getting the seedlings from, whatever store you're getting your plants from, right? Everything starts with the foundation. Everything starts with the soil. So let's say you have this soil and you're putting your seeds in there, but it's not rooted in good soil, meaning your foundation is off, right? When it comes to the kind of soil that you're using for your plants to be able to reap the harvest ongoingly for years to come, right? You got to make sure that you have the right nutrients, the right fertilizer. You got to make sure that you have the right soil for the right plant. You got to make sure that all of these things are in place so that when you're getting ready to expect your plants to sprout and reap a harvest, your plants can actually sustain. Right. So let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat box if this is kind of making sense. Hey, Andre, glad to see you live. Hey. Let me know if this is making sense, y'all, so far as foundation. OK, I want to make sure that I'm emphasizing foundation as much as I can, because I cannot say this enough. If your foundation is rocky, don't matter what you do. Don't matter who you consult with, it's just not going to work, okay? It's just not going to work. So the other thing that I spoke about last week when it comes to your mission, y'all, is, or really when it comes to just having a resilient foundation, right? So your mission comes from your why, and it creates your vision, right? And so the last thing that I'll say about this from step one, which is rewriting your mission, sharing this with your team, is that, y'all, how will you know when your mission is complete, right? It's one thing to have an outdated mission, but it's another thing when your mission is not clear, it's not, written out in a way where you'll know that your mission is complete. So what I mean by that, so some rebrands ago, when we first started the agency, my mission back in the day was to bridge the global wealth gap. Sounds cool. Sounds great. But how do I know if my mission is complete? How do I know if I'm even getting close to bridging this global wealth gap? So as we went through this rebranding, y'all, my mission changed from bridging the global wealth gap to now I'm on a mission to keep more businesses in operation. I want to keep more businesses in business, right? So in order for me to kind of know when my mission is complete, is I had to be very specific with that. So I had to kind of write it out. And now I'm on a mission to keep 1,000 businesses in operation for 10 years or more. So when I get to that 1,000 business that is still in operation 10 years down the road, that's when I'll know my work is done. That's when I'll know my mission is complete, right? So again, last thing that I'll say, and then we'll transition over to today's topic, is that, again, y'all, when it comes to your business, when it comes to a famine-proof business, one that is unaffected by the next economic environmental disaster, right? When it comes to sustaining, especially if you are in the business of longevity, please make sure that you have a resilient foundation. And again, a lot of that starts and it ends with you. And a lot of that does depend on your core values, your principles, because every decision that you make is going to come from that. And so when you're making decisions that's out of alignment with that, then that is a recipe for failure. I've been around the block. I've shut down businesses. I work with so many businesses that are no longer in operation just because they didn't understand the principle of your foundation. And also, the last thing, because I get real passionate, I want to start preaching, but your business is a reflection of you. So if you're not even in alignment, right? If you're not your optimal self, how in the hell do you expect your business to be optimal? How in the hell do you expect your business to be that business that's going to be around 5, 10, 20 years to come, a business that you could potentially pass down to future generations or even potentially sell, right? So again, if you missed step one, if you missed the kickoff of this series, y'all, check your email, check your inbox. It's going to be around for the next 24 hours. So you'll be able to get all of that information so that you can ensure you have a resilient foundation. So now I'm going to see if I can share my screen. And y'all, I'm using a new software, clearly powered by StreamYard. So y'all let me know if you can't see my notes, because I really want y'all to follow along. But I still want y'all to see me too. So let me know, give me some feedback, y'all. If you can't see these notes, if I need to blow it up, or if you're like, girl, take this out of a Google Doc and put this in a slideshow. Y'all let me know what works best for you. But again, hashtag live, hashtag replay if you are catching this live or on the replay. So today, step 2, we're going to get into your cash flow and whether or not if cash flow is still king. And I want to put this disclaimer here, y'all. I am not a financial advisor. I am not a CPA. So everything that I'm going to be teaching you today, I'm not going to be touching on specifics as to like what your profit margin should be, right? What your cash flow should be, right? What your balance sheet, what your sales, what your revenue should be, right? One, because again, I'm not a CPA and I stick within things that's in my genius zone, but also these things change, right? And it's so tailored to your business and to your life and to your goals and what you're working on, that it just changes. And the one that I like to teach is I teach principle based. So I teach principles that are timeless because I want to teach you the habits that's going to position you to be that time-rich CEO that has a famine-proof business. So in today's topic of is cash flow still king, y'all? What I've noticed, especially with those leaders, those organizations, founders, CEOs that are growing and scaling fast, is that oftentimes, and I thought this too, especially as we launched the agency back in July 2022. So we're coming up on our third year. Every single year, y'all, we've been booked out before November. And I used to be one of those people that thought, or more clients equals more cash. And that equals progress. I couldn't have been more wrong. Right? Another one is being booked out means banked. I don't know if you all ever have thought that. Let me know in the chat, in the comments, if you've ever felt like, having this booked and busy, lifestyle means that you got bank, you got money rolling in, right? I used to think this too. Also, growing fast means a healthy business. These are all myths. These are all things that are not necessarily true. And if you don't understand this now, I hope that you don't get to the point where you understand this later. I hope that from the end of today's training, you'll be able to say, you know what? She's right. Even though we're growing and we're scaling pretty quickly, I need to make sure that we have an actual healthy business. I need to make sure that we can stay in operation if we lose our biggest supplier, or if, the recession comes and the economy is in shits tomorrow, your business is still around, next year. Okay. So all of these things, what it leads to, number one, is crash and burn, especially if you're growing and scaling your business quicker than you can keep up with. That's also a recipe for your business shutting down. And I've seen it so many times, especially during the pandemic. There were so many PPpreneurs and so many businesses that came out during the pandemic that's not around 4 or 5 years later, right? And there's so many different reasons as to why that is, which is why we're doing this series. So in order for you to make sure that that's not you, let's kind of pay attention to how this necessarily happens. So when you're growing and you're scaling fast, a lot of the times you just feel like you're building and you're flying the plane at the same time. And a lot of times you may feel like you're flying blindly, right? So it's kind of like, picture yourself, you're in a car and you are taking a road trip somewhere, right? And you see that there's this open track, there's no traffic. So you're able to, have a heavy foot, put your foot on the gas and just go, and just zoom, right? But you're doing this in a way where you're blindfolded, right? You're doing this in a way where not only you're blindfolded, but you don't really have a map or a destination. So you're doing all the things, you're moving quickly, but it's just a matter of time before you crash, right? And so this is my job to make sure that this does not happen to you. Another thing that I've seen is that when you're growing, you're scaling quickly, oftentimes you may feel like you're hitting big numbers, but inside you're still a little bit nervous. That feast or famine cycle is still around the corner, right? When you're hitting these big numbers and you're crushing it and you have this record-breaking revenue generating month, quarter, and year, if you still have that hint of doubt and worry in the back of your head and you're still wondering, it doesn't matter how much money we're making, I still don't feel safe, y'all, that is also a recipe for the feast and famine cycle, meaning it's just a matter of time before your business goes out of business. And again, I do not want this to happen to you. What else does this lead to? This leads to misaligned decision making. So I see a lot of businesses, they're doing one of two things. They're tracking the wrong things, or they're tracking everything and they're acting on nothing. So how many of you all, when it comes to your finances, you know exactly what your numbers are, you know exactly what data you should be tracking on a daily basis? On a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis. If you don't know, let me know in the comments and let's talk about it, right? But let's say that you do know exactly what metrics you need to be tracking and you're tracking all of the data, but you just have all of this data sitting here, you're not doing anything with it, right? So the whole point of data is to be able to tell you exactly what's going on with your business, because we all know numbers don't lie, data doesn't lie. So your numbers and your data, they're going to tell you exactly what's going on with your business. If you're overspending too much, you can dive deep and see exactly where you're overspending. Are you overspending on your team? Are you overspending in investments? Are you overspending on subscriptions, things that's keeping your business in operation? Right? If you're not spending too much, you have enough cash flow to, handle the next quarter, right? So again, all of this I've seen that this leads to misaligned decision making. That again is a recipe for a business that will not sustain, especially in a recession. Last thing that I've seen this happen, and this is a huge one, right? Even though you're growing and you're scaling quickly, you're going to get to the point, if you don't have these things dialed in, that you're going to experience stunted growth. So you're going to experience some kind of an income ceiling, because what a lot of businesses do, especially when they're money driven and not mission driven, is that they obsess over revenue, but they ignore retention, right? And the thing that I've learned about business, y'all, is yes, it's great to have traffic coming into your pipeline, but that should not be where your main focus is on. Your main focus should be on, how do you keep this traffic in your ecosystem? How do you keep your clients coming back for more? How do you increase that lifetime value of your average client? That right there is the recipe or an indicator of a healthy business. So you could focus on the top of the funnel and bringing all these people into your world and having all these sales left and right and doing all the things. But if none of that is sustaining, that's like a huge hole that's gaping out of your business. Again, that's another recipe for failure. Last thing too, when it comes to stunted growth and these income ceilings, some businesses, when they get to the point that cash flow is so good, they're making a lot of money, they're looking at headcount, but they're not looking at profitability, right? So what I mean by that is you may have a lot of people on your team, whether it's 5 people, 10 people, 20, 100 people, but as you are hiring people to delegate and remove you from tasks that you don't want to do, excuse me, if these team members aren't bringing you the ROI that you need so that you can reinvest these profits into your business, right? It's one thing to have revenue coming in, but revenue does not equal profit. If you don't have enough profit to reinvest back into your business, it doesn't matter how much money you make, you're losing it all, right? So let me know again if these are things that you've experienced, these are things that you've dealt with, that you've personally, or you know someone that has dealt with this. And if so, y'all send them this video. Okay, tell them to sign up for these series. I'll be live every Thursday for the next 8 weeks. So I have this here because this is something that I talked about last week. I'm going to update this, but this is still something that kind of drives it home for me, because again, when your purpose, this goes back to your foundation, this goes back to your core values, your principles, why you're doing all the things that you're doing. When your purpose evolves but your operations stay the same, growth turns into chaos, not legacy. So eventually, when you're getting to the point where you have demand, meaning you have this proof of concept, people are aware of exactly what it is that you do, you know exactly who you're serving, how you're serving them, and then there's a demand for your services, for your products, right? So you're entering into this growth phase. Growth isn't supposed to be messy. Growth isn't supposed to be chaotic. There's a way that growth can still happen in a way that you can still have your sanity, right? So I'm going to pause here to go on a little bit of a tangent, because when it comes to your purpose, this reminds me of a sermon Mike Todd did from Transformation Church out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He did a huge series about chasing purpose instead of paper. And I remember I had watched that sermon, what is it, 2025? I watched that sermon back in 2020. Was it 2020? I think it's been some years since I watched that, but that was such a huge component, because for me, that like opened up my eyes to what entrepreneurship and what business really is. I had a mentor when I first started. I was in this mastermind. She always talked about, you don't need motivation, you need vision, right? You need to understand, what is your why? Why do you wake up and do the things that you're doing? Because if you're running off of motivation is like a force, right? And like with anything that's being exerted for a long period of time, eventually that force is going to run out, it's going to exhaust. So what's going to happen? You're going to have to replace that with something else, with another thing that motivates you. Well, instead of relying on motivation that expires, right? Rely on your vision. Your vision is the one thing that's going to propel you forward and keep you, going and keep the needle moving in your business, especially when it comes to those days where you're in the bed and you don't want to get out of bed, you're just stuck, right? Don't rely on motivation, rely on vision, okay? So coming back here to cash flow, and we just kind of talked about, we talked about growing quickly, how being booked and busy is not necessarily an indicator of a healthy business. Being booked out does not mean you're banked, right? What are some things that you can do to stay on track of this, to make sure that your finances are in order? So I'm going to give you 3 different things that you can do. These are things that I do to make sure. And I learned this lesson back in 2023, y'all, when I did not do these things. And it came to the end of 2023. And I was like, where did all our money go? We made a lot of money, but like nothing's to show for it. Well, this was why I wasn't doing any of these things. So the first thing is daily monitoring. So when it comes to your bank account, both your business and your personal, of course, keep them separate. But for both of them, you should be at least checking your bank accounts daily, right? Especially if you're having a lot of transactions that's coming in daily. If it's not you, have someone designated onto your team that's doing this, or hopefully you have a CPA. If you need a CPA, let me know and I will definitely connect you with one. But one thing that happens when you're looking at your bank accounts on a daily basis is you're able to see where your money is coming, right? Where your money is going, right? So one thing I like to say is establish a minimum bank account balance. So let's say hypothetically your business account, you don't want your business account to go anywhere under $5,000. So you're looking at your bank account every day and you're seeing that maybe there is some subscriptions that you didn't even know that you had, or there were some charges, some fraudulent charges that happen, or maybe there's an expense that you had no clue about. Checking this every day, it gives you, or having someone who's on this every day gives you an opportunity to be able to address that immediately, so that you don't have to wait for weeks or months to come, and then it gets a little bit harder to track what happened and why and where. Okay. And also, you get to avoid overspending too, especially when you have this minimum bank account balance, and you see that, of course, your bank account is going to go up and down. That's the nature of business. But when you have this baseline, right, it allows you to say, you know what, today I don't need to spend no money. Today I don't need to go out and have this elaborate dinner. We can cook at home. We got the food at home, right? Second thing is, well, I learned this from one of my very first fractional COO clients. She is a CPA, has this amazing firm, and she taught me this tactic about weekly money dates. And so every single week, she picks one day out the week, and she intentionally has a date with money. Like, she goes out sometimes, and maybe she'll go out to dinner, and the whole point is to just look at her finances once a week. And what this does is, one, it allows you to, especially once you've established your minimum bank account balance, after that, establish what your maximum monthly expense is, so that when you're looking at your numbers, when you're having your money date once a week, you can again analyze your cash flow, you can analyze your expenses, and you can stay on track and make sure that your monthly expenses never exceed that maximum that you have set. Also, with these weekly money dates, is that it gives you the space and time to also kind of look at, how are you doing with your finance? How are your financial habits even going? It's one thing to make money, but it's a whole another ball field. It takes a whole another skill set to keep money, right? So when you have these weekly money dates, make sure that you are doing this, okay? And then also, it allows you to, again, dress those holes, those small leaks, that before you know it, it becomes this whole big hole, this gaping hole that is now that's taking all of the changes and all of the beautiful things that you're making into your business. Is snatching that from you. So with these weekly money dates, again, you're just creating that space and time to do a deep dive into your finances and your financial habits. So have a conversation with yourself and say, hey, Alante, I think that next week we should probably scale back a little bit on all these investments that we're doing for Q2, and we should have a different direction as to what we're doing, so that we can ensure that we sustain, so that we can ensure we have a healthy business, right? The third thing that I recommend that you do is quarterly audits. So again, you're looking at your bank accounts on a daily basis, just seeing if you're overspending, any fraudulent charges, anything you're just looking out for things that should not be there. Your weekly money dates, you're having a conversation pretty much, and just what is that, awareness for yourself, kind of like looking at your finances in a mirror, and you're deciding whether or not, if all things that you're doing is still working or not, right? And then hopefully, if you do have a CPA, they're doing this and they're giving you weekly reports, and they'll let you know, hey, your cash flow is significantly less from last week. I don't know what happened, or actually they will know what happened, and they'll tell you exactly what needs to be done, so that next week you don't repeat that. But with this third one, quarterly audits, this is how you ensure that you have enough profit to reinvest into your business, so that you can continue to grow and scale, and you don't come through, or you don't come and encounter a income ceiling, or you don't experience this stunted growth. So when it comes to these quarterly audits that you're doing, one thing that I like to say is, this is going to be different for every person, but establish what a healthy margin looks like for you, a healthy profit margin looks like for you. Let's say, excuse me, that for your business, for everything that you're spending, for paying yourself, payroll, labor that you have in your team, the things that you're spending to keep your business in operation, even debt that you may owe, right? Let's say that you want to have a profit margin of 20%. So with everything that you're spending, you at least at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, you want to have 20% in profits left after paying taxes and all of that, right? So this allows you to look at your, again, finances on a quarterly basis so you can analyze what is our profit margin this quarter based on last quarter. And then again, your numbers, they don't lie. They're going to tell you exactly what's going on in your business so that by the time the next quarter comes around, you can make those necessary changes to get back on track and end the year on a beautiful, healthy note, okay? And then also, when you're doing this on a quarterly basis, again, this is how you can prepare for year-to-year growth, and you can continue growing your business on a year-to-year basis. Like, it's one thing to have a business, especially I saw this a lot, y'all, during the pandemic. There were people that were having six-figure months and quarters, and then, 4 or 5 months down the road, they weren't able to repeat that. It was like, okay, now maybe it's like 5K, 4 figures, 5 figures, right? So to me, that's not a healthy business, because if you're making that amount of money, you want to be able to sustain that. You want to be able to grow your business year to year, not experience crazy growth one year and then you have to backpedal another year. Okay. So let's talk about the benefits of this, because we are getting close to time. The 3 benefits of this is that, one, you get to avoid any financial surprises, right? It's one thing to wake up and you got a crazy tax bill, or it's one thing to wake up and you just see your bank account has been significantly overdrafted. It's one thing to see that, oh, there was this huge expense that came out of your account that you didn't plan for. And so now your back is up against the wall for the next month. You have no clue how you're going to pay your team, right? Well, in order to avoid that, do these 3 things. Second benefit is there's no more feast or famine cycle. So you don't ever have to worry about coming into another feast or famine cycle, because you're no longer in cash flow scarcity, right? You're never going to experience stunted growth in income ceilings, because if you're doing all the things and monitoring your finances on a daily basis, you're having these weekly money dates, and you're doing these quarterly check-ins or checkups on your profit margins. I mean, how else can you ensure that your business sustains? This is like the recipe for success. And with these benefits, y'all, this is what it typically eliminates. So again, you no longer get anxious and worry about economic or environmental disasters. So it's one thing to plan for, let's say Q1 is normally the time that you're going to make these crazy investments, and then you're going to pick it back up Q2, Q3, because you know that you have some clients' cash flow coming in, right? Again, you can plan for everything else, baby, but you cannot plan for an economic or environmental disaster. I learned this lesson back in 2020 during the pandemic when I was getting ready to leave corporate, y'all. When I tell y'all that elaborate corporate plan was like top tier, I dotted all I's, crossed all T's. But then as soon as that pandemic hit, y'all, that was the one thing I could not plan for. And I found myself having to shut down my own businesses. And I do not want anyone to ever have to experience what that is, what that feels like, or ever have to shut down a business, which is the whole point of why I'm doing this series. So after you implement these steps above, and if you missed it, you're just tuning in, be sure to catch the replay. It's going to be available for the next week so that you can go ahead and get these steps so that you can eliminate these things. But again, you're no longer going to get worried or be anxious about recessions, depressions, when the economy is in shits, because your business is good. In fact, you're positioned on the other side so that you can take advantage of these opportunities, because y'all, when interest rates go down, when there's a crash in the housing market, when there's a crash in the stock market, the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that, because crazy growth comes from those opportunities, but you have to be positioned on the right side of the economy in order to do that. Second thing is that your cash flow is never going to be scarce when you're monitoring this on a daily, weekly, and quarterly basis. And then last thing too is there's no more reactive decision making. So you get to go from being reactive where things are happening and all of a sudden now you got to, put out fires on a daily basis. Now you get to be reactive because you're doing all the things. You're now looking out for red flags. And when you do see a red flag, you know exactly what needs to be done to, put that red flag out and get back on track, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close on out, y'all, because again, I wanted this to be 30 minutes. But a day in the life of when your foundation is intact, when you're doing all the things to make sure that your cash flow is healthy, right? Again, it's one thing to be booked and busy, but being booked out does not mean being banked, right? Having crazy growth does not mean your business is healthy. You can grow and not retain a damn thing, okay? Don't want that to be you. But if this does sound like something that you want to have in your life, to stay in the life, right? Well, your well-being is intact because y'all know that money is probably one of the number one, if not the most thing that causes a lot of stress in relationships of any kind, whether it's marriage, whether it's personal, whether it's family, whether it's business, whether it's friendship. A lot of it comes down to money. So when your money is not right, naturally you're going to default to being in scarcity and survival mode, right? And so when you're operating on this low frequency, it's so hard. Y'all, it is so hard to see all the opportunities that's right in front of you because I don't believe that opportunities are once in a lifetime. I believe that's opportunities all around you. There's such a surplus, there's such an abundance of that. Abundance is your birthright. You just got to make sure that you change your lens so that you can see that these opportunities are still here, right? So again, when you are monitoring your finances on a daily, weekly, and quarterly basis, your well-being is going to be intact, meaning you're going to be your optimal self. And because your business is a reflection of you, when you are optimal, your business is optimal, right? Second thing is you're going to have an attractive business for investors. One thing that we do is we have a funding strategy that we leverage every single quarter because our business is so attractive to investors that we're pretty much thrown capital pretty much every quarter. But a lot of this comes down to staying on top of your finances, staying on top of your cash flow, doing all the things that you need to do, having these amazing, financial habits, because again, it's two different skill sets. It takes one skill set to get the cash flow, and it takes a whole different skill set to keep the cash flow. And the last thing, y'all, is you get to join the top 10% of those in your industry that's in the business of longevity. At the end of the day, we didn't start a business to create another job. We damn sure didn't start a business to shut the business down just a year, 3 years, 5 years from now. I don't know about you, but I need my business to be around 20 years from now because I don't know still if I want to pass it down to generations or if I want to just sell it, right? But doing all of these things will position you to be able to take advantage and make those kind of decisions so that your business can sustain. Okay. So that is, I believe, it. Oh, let me recap, y'all, before I close on out. So recap all of this. Again, when it comes to step 2 and this training over whether or not cash flow is still king, monitor your cash flow on a daily basis, have weekly money dates, and have quarterly profit checkups. When you are doing these things, when you are establishing these habits, right? When you're implementing these principles in your business, it's almost impossible for your business to not grow because you're going to see that crazy growth comes from this. Sustainable growth comes from this, and you're going to avoid the crash and burn that a lot of businesses fall into when they're growing and they're scaling very quickly. All right. So that is pretty much it for today, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and close on out. If you enjoyed today, let me know in the comments. If you tuned in live, caught this on a replay, let me know in the comments, y'all. Again, this stream thing is new for me, so I'm still trying to figure out how it works. But y'all let me know if y'all like this. If not, we're still working through it. But outside of that, y'all, if you found value in this and you have someone in your circle, friends, family, a colleague, a business partner, business bestie who you feel like could really benefit from this series of becoming famine-proof and ensuring that their business is positioned to survive not just this recession, but any recession, any economic and environmental disaster, all I ask is that you please share this with them, okay? Please share this with them. I'm going to put the link in the comments, in the description after I end this stream. And then I'll see y'all next Thursday for training in step number 3. Until next time, y'all. Bye.